goes into Darling of the West. It says Western governments were receptive to opposition agenda, but recent activities show they are abandoning support for the democratic ideals. And with the parliament in hand of the executive, the political space has drastically changed. That story, you can follow it inside the Standard today. We have a bite from the president saying, it will be ungrateful of us to vilify the people who are creating opportunities for us. We have huge investments from the US government, Germany, and others. We must know what our interests are and secure them. President William Ruto's close ties with the West has unsettled the opposition, which now seems to be falling out of favor with Western countries. During Daniel Arap Moi, Mwai Kibaki and Uhuru Kenyatta regimes, the US and most of the European nations enjoyed a cordial relationship with the opposition. Former US ambassador to Kenya, Smith Hempston, goes down in history as having enjoyed a good relationship with the opposition and at one time almost became its face. You have the story on page 4 of the Standard this morning, and we shall also be looking at that as well. This doggedly follows some of the sentiments that tripped off the Right Honorable Raila Odinga's tongue regarding the US ambassador over his remarks on the past elections that we just had, that it was the fairest of all, and that has ruffled the feathers of the opposition. On the side, but tale of widows fighting alone to save their lands. Tale of widows fighting alone to save their lands is a special report there. Death of a husband is not only source of grief, but a nightmare to women who battle marauding relatives keen to disinherit them. You have the story on page 14 and 15 of the Standard. And also Ruto Science deals with Indonesia president. It says leader signed MOUs on trade facilitation in the oil and gas, pharmaceutical, edible oils, agriculture, livestock exports, and textile production. That story continues on page 11 of the Standard this morning. Also inside today, you have the Financial Standard. Just to remind you that every Tuesday you have it, where you can get all the wise as far as your financial status is concerned. The new bargain hunters is what is a splash today. The new bargain hunters, in light of what everyone is facing right now, everybody will be gagging for a bargain in whatever you're buying or you're hoping to buy. You can follow the story inside the Financial Standard. University workers face job losses. Some universities have been hit hard by declining admission beginning September and will have to review their staffing numbers as well as sparks paid to employees. The Commission for University Education has recommended that government stops funding rejected degrees, dealing a blow to institutions' sustainability. And you have this story tucked away on page 7 of the Standard this morning. 200, that is the number of courses that attracted less than 10 students. And yesterday we had the bold paper also carrying out that particular headline with the rejected degrees, breaking it down for you, how many, also looking at some of the applications that have been made to some of these courses. Some of them attracted only one student. We have 200, that is the number of teaching staff that private universities are likely to suck in the first year of new funding model. Also 7, number of students who want to take courses at Pan-African Christian University. And number of students who chose to study at International Leadership University, that is only 3. So you can read all the details inside the Standard this morning. Music Festival winners dealt with presidents. Winners of the 95th edition of the annual music festival are set to perform at a gala to be held at Nakuru High School. At least 600 classes were showcased this year. And you have the story continuing on page 3 of the Standard today. Let's see what we have on top here. The teaser no culminates on Kisumu-Kericho border. And the story is tucked away on page 12. We'll give you the gritty details of this as well. EAC bid to remove trade barriers And that is on the business pages of the Standard today. Kenya's big day in Budapest, making us proud there. That is Kipyegon. You can follow the story on page 40 of the Standard this morning. The Daily Nation, stormy teachers pay talks begin. Stormy teachers pay talks begin is a splash this morning. There's an uproar. Union has rejected the up to 10% pay rise by Salaries Commission. And here are the demands. Maybe we can just highlight them looking on the side of Kuppet and NAT. We have Kuppet side, we have Secretary General Akelo Misori insisting on a 30 to 70% salary increment, rejects SRC's 7 to 10% pay rise, implementation of career progression guidelines, enhanced medical benefits, especially maternity pension, review of stipends for intern teachers. We have on the side of the NAT, the demands that they're putting on the table, led by the Secretary General Collins Oyu. They want lowest paying teachers to secure the highest percentage pay rise. SRC has proposed a 7 to 10% raise. Opposed to demotion of primary school heads without degrees, as proposed by Presidential Task Force. Those are some of the salient issues that they're putting on the table. Those are their demands. And it says union leaders meet Teachers Service Commission officials today to reopen salary increment negotiations that, however, start in acrimony after the representative of tutors rejected a pay rise proposed by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, insisting on much higher packs that reflect rising living costs. You have the story on page 6 and 7 of the Daily Nation this morning. Technical team has until Friday to draft agenda for Ruto-Raila dialogue. The National Dialogue Committee involving President Ruto and opposition leader Raila Odinga's factions has tasked the technical team to frame the issues for discussion ahead of its meeting on Friday. You have the story on page 4. And healthcare. Through their unions, medics want the crisis facing the health sector, including pay grievances and the hiring of more health workers, included in the agenda for the talks. Looking at the side of a state agency in race against time to abolish CBC subjects, Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development has 9 days to scrap 11 subjects for pre-primary to junior secondary schools, as recommended by a presidential task force. That story continues on page 7 of the Daily Nation. There is a new study that is rooting for boys' vaccination against HPV. And you can follow the story on page 3. 6 Kericho County officials face ouster over Londiani crash victims' funds scandal. The story continues on page 21. There is a Healthy Nation pull-out magazine for you also inside the Daily Nation this morning. Looking on top here, the teaser Kenya and Indonesia seal trade deals with consumers securing low-cost cooking oil. The story continues on page 10. Kenyatta University bags most trophies as music festivals or festival closes. Winners Gala today. That is on page 2 of the Daily Nation this morning. The Star is up next, and this is what you're waking up to the front page of the Star today. It says Ruto plan to keep in touch with hustlers. Ruto plan to keep in touch with hustlers. This is a game plan president repeating election strategy that saw him triumph over Raila. He has been visiting various parts of the country nearly every week. And the story continues on page 4 and 5 of the Star today. Also, dialogue team undertakes to ignore ranting politicians. They are focused. They want to deliver on their mandate. We have also an inset here where we can see Morans transitioning to senior warriors in Narok. New responsibilities. Masai Morans can be seen here applying red ochre on their hair during the Eunoto celebration in Kilgoris, Nakuru County. Also on the right, Masai Morans make a formation in Kilgoris yesterday. The Eunoto celebrations is a rite of passage among the Maasai community where Morans transition to senior warriors. And you can follow the story inside the Star as well. I think there's no story there, it's just a picture that speaks volumes. You can read the rest of the details inside the Star, where No Freedom neighbor from hell who raped granny to serve 30 years in prison. He's lost his appeal there. And IBC commissioners, lawmakers urged to move fast and avert looming electoral boundaries crisis. This is all about delimitation as well. Right now, we don't have IBC constituted, and that also is pending. And we are looking forward also to a constitutional crisis if nothing really comes to bear as far as the constitution of IBC is concerned. This is the Star. Paper Daily. Ruto pay bill rule hurts state farms. That is what we have as a splash this morning. Ruto pay bill rule hurts state farms. There is a directive that is now being challenged, even as key agencies feel squeeze of order requiring them to use one pay platform. Judge certifies case as urgent, and you can follow the story on page 5 of the People Daily this morning. There are new rules on how to grade KCSE candidates, and you can read all about it on page 6 of the People Daily. And everyone is condoling with the winning tragedy where we had 6 people dying. There's a survivor who is speaking out, and most of them are as well. So you can read the rest of the story. Wedding tragedy survivors speak out. Ceremony was going on well until we started celebrating the bride. One witness says of incidents in which 6 people died when they fell into an underground tank after its slab collapsed as they danced in jubilation. That story continues on inside the Star this morning. Kenya and Indonesia in trade pact. Nairobi exported goods worth 1.14 billion shillings to Indonesia last year, while its imports stood at 27.1 billion shillings, indicating need for the two countries to improve the balance of trade, which is skewed against Kenya. You can follow the story inside the People Daily, and you can see an insert there of President William Ruto with his Indonesian counterpart, Joko Widodo, at State House, Nairobi yesterday when they held talks and jointly addressed the media. They agreed on priority areas to strengthen commercial ties between the two nations. You can follow the story inside the People Daily this morning. Let's see what we have on top here. Gor Mahia, yes, we are the team to beat. New season of Kenya Premier League kicks off in 6 days, and defending champions Kogalo are not being modest about their ambition. You can read the rest of the details on page 31 of the People Daily. Let's buckle down to some business now, where it is emerging that a Hustler Fund's defaults is hitting 3 billion shillings in only 9 months. 29% of 10.2 billion shillings loan book deemed portfolio at risk. Defaults beat microfinance banks, who have 23%. And it says here that borrowers on the state-backed Financial Inclusion Fund, popular as Hustler Fund, are defaulting on payment at a higher rate than those at commercial banks, SACCOs and microfinance banks, mirroring the headache mobile lenders face advancing unsecured loans to the informal sector. Out of the Hustlers Fund's outstanding 10.2 billion shillings worth of loans, 29% is deemed to be portfolio at risk. You can read the rest of the details there inside the Business Daily. A telling picture as well. President William Ruto interacted with food vendors during a launch of the Hustler Fund in Nairobi. You can read the rest of the details on page 2 of the People Daily this morning. Expensive spare parts trigger car write-offs on weak shillings. On weak shilling. Insurance companies are opting to write off some models of cars on Kenyan roads instead of repairing them as the cost of repairs and renting vehicles rise. Cars that are triggering most write-offs include the Mazda, Honda, and a number of German models such as BMW, Mercedes-Benz, and Volkswagen models. The impact is less on Toyota and Nissan models. You can read the rest of the details on page 2. This is the impact of a shilling losing its strength against the dollar. On the ticker, the deals Kenya signed with Indonesia on Widodo visit, all tucked away on page 5 of the Business Daily this morning. Civicon faces pay demand in Kenyan contract row. 12th century-owned Civicon has suffered a blow after the High Court discharged orders blocking Equity Bank from releasing funds to Chinese firm Fuji Electric, arising from a multi-million shilling contract for the construction of a geothermal power plant And also retirees failed to claim 166 million shillings benefits from NSSF. This is a story that you want to follow on page 14 of the Business Daily this morning. Crossing over to Tanzania, how dollars appreciation is affecting debt servicing. So it is not just here, but we have Tanzania also facing the same specter of the shilling, or their shilling, falling precipitously against the dollar. Tanzania is facing a mounting challenge in servicing its external debt as the US dollar's appreciation against the shilling sees the national debt valuation rise by nearly 2 trillion shillings in 3 months. You can read the rest of the details inside the Citizen as well. Indonesian president's visit to boost relations. Widodo is headed to Tanzania, and of course now they're highlighting what that bilateral talks will be all about. All that tucked away inside the Citizen in Tanzania this morning. Also, clerics mean no harm when they say criticize. That is what ELCT is saying. The rest of the details is on page 2. And work on BRT 5th phase to commence in December. Parastatal chiefs warned of abuse of authority. You can read all the details inside the Citizen if you're waking up in Tanzania this morning. In Uganda, we have the Daily Monitor, where police are blaming careless drivers for fatal crashes. You can read the rest of the details on page 4 and 5. Also, there's some displeasure that is being expressed here. Kabaka calls for speedy delivery of land justice, and farmers take cut war to Museveni. Detained Army Colonel Calms agrees to pay his victims. You can follow the story inside the Daily Monitor if you're waking up in Uganda. Also, we have Rainbow. Kizito wins quiz at the month contest, and FBC camps planned rival summit. That all the details of this also is tucked away inside the Daily Monitor this morning. The New Times is up next, and this is happening in Rwanda beyond the court. Masai Ujiri on why African sports is lucrative. Several new developments were registered in Kigali, mainly in sports infrastructure. You have the story on page 4 of the New Times. COK calls for evacuation of residents in high-risk zones. And you can see an insert here, some houses located in Nyabisindu in Remera sector, Gasabo district, that have been identified as being in a high-risk zone. On Monday, August the 21st, Kigali City noted a total of 7,361 families residing in high-risk areas that require urgent evacuation before the start of the rainy season. You have the story all tucked away inside the New Times if you're waking up in Rwanda. And after 5 challenges limiting youth from engaging in trade, and family of Rwandan athlete killed in Kenya speaks out. You can read all about that inside the Rwandan New Times. And Rwanda ranks 5th in Africa for fintech startup funding. All that tucked away on page 5 of the New Times in Rwanda. The East African this week is focusing on what is happening in DR Congo right now, the exiting of MONUSCO. Who is next? That is the abiding question. Congo's southern neighbors are sending in a force to buttress its defenses as the UN mission leaves after 25-year checkered history. The UN warns that the security situation in the troubled East could worsen unless another mission steps in. Who will it be? ESC or SRDC? That is the question. The story continues on page 4 and 5 of the East African this morning. Will be remiss also if we don't show you what is happening on the international front, the international publications there. The China Daily, that is of course crossing the borders. President eyes closer ties with South Africa. She hails brotherly sentiments shared by the two nations amid changing international landscape. Also, we have Hillary wreaking havoc there. As you can see here, motorists dealing with a flooded road and stuck vehicles near Palm Springs on Sunday after heavy rainfall triggered by Tropical Storm Hillary drenched Southern California in the United States. Also, cafe with a cause trains hearing impaired bakers. All that is tucked away inside the China Daily. Solid foundation set for global South development. It's another story that you want to follow inside the China daily as well. All right, I look at the editorial cartoons. This is what Victor has drawn today inside the Star. It's all about that Gulf deal that was meant to at least ameliorate or pacify us as far as the landing pad is concerned on the fuel prices. Has it borne any fruit, this Gulf oil deal? And you can see Ruto holding court with the IMF there. And this is what also the opposition is having heebie-jeebies or jittery about, as you can see from the other dailies as well, are also looking at the Standard this morning, which is headlined, Ruto grows into darling of the West, which is sending shivers on the side of the opposition. All right, the World Cup, Women's World Cup, the curtains, of course, fell yesterday, and Spain won. Spain reign over England. FIFA Women's World Cup 2023. Our national women's team got lessons to learn there. The lessons were fruitful. Hope we took some silent information and lessons from that particular World Cup as far as our soccer is concerned here in the country. Those are your dailies this morning. I shall be showing you much of the international publications as well as we continue with the program. But for now, I just want to introduce our panelists who are already here in studio up and alley. We have with us Member of Parliament, Eldas. This is Adan Kanan joining us this morning. Also, we're holding court this morning with Senator Dan Manzo, who is a senator of Makueni as well. We have Senator of Nyamira. This is Okongo Mogini. Okongo Mogini also is a senior counsel as well. We'll be joined much later by the Deputy Majority Leader of the National Assembly, Owen Baya, to continue pace with the conversation. But also you get to have a show with us. It is on Twitter. KTN News is our Twitter handle. And also you can follow me at Dibal Ainea as we continue with the conversation. Let me just hear from our panelists just to get introductory remarks today, the 23rd of 2023, August. Good morning. How are you?
Morning. How are you doing?
Very well. Yesterday on transit, I know you were
yesterday
taking care of your constituents.
Camel Hada. That is what gives us everything that we have enjoyed.
I hope you came with some camel milk.
Yes, these days everything. The meat that you consume in Nairobi actually is, you can get the freshest camel milk, meat, and even our Lapai products. Yeah, so Nairobi is changing. I'm sure my friend here, if he's on this side of Kajiado, things are also completely, so the camel industry is flourishing.
It's flourishing.
Kenyans have accepted camel as one of the brands of livestock goods. And I hope this will help in the development of both the market and entrench the marketability of actually the camel product, because this is one thing that has not really flourished very well in the past. But countries like Ethiopia, Somalia, Djibouti, the Middle East, the camel product and the camel meat is one of the most treasured livestock products actually in the world. And I hope Kenya will join the same, League of Nations.
Yeah, and it's very nutritive. Okongo Morgan, you should actually have come with some of this camel milk so that Okongo Morgan can have a taste of it.
Yes,
and Dan Mazo here.
Next time. Dan is a survivor. He knows.
He's a
survivor. He knows.
He thrives on goat milk, not camel.
And it's not also very far from the root. Yes.
But I understand once you take also the camel milk, it tends to really cleanse your system, first of all, before your system also really accustomed to get
to there are a lot of medicinal benefits. So that's why Kenya actually things are changing. Look at right now what is happening to Elgeyo Marakwet. Not only actually in northern Kenya, from the Pokots to the Turkanas, the entire pastoralist communities are now adapting camel rearing as their main economic
mainstay.
Which is good because of the serious climate change. Camels actually can thrive at very difficult environment. So things are changing completely with minimum actually cost on veterinary services. So things are changing. And that is what has given us everything that the camel industry is what has really helped the people of northern Kenya under very difficult conditions in terms of transport, in terms of milk, in terms of meat, in terms of hides and skin, in terms of other medicinal benefits. So I'm here as a proud product of the camel industry.
Yeah.
Yes.
It shows looking very healthy. But also one of the biggest threat that we have, maybe we should consider as well, is the diminishing of the numbers of the donkeys in the country. Because also with this particular environment that we're living in, we have the cost of fuel that is going up. Most of the people, mashinani, they've gone back to their donkeys, which is, to some of them, is a source of living. Women also, they're really, benefiting, or they have been benefiting with the donkeys being resourceful to them, helping them to go and fetch water from the rivers. But recently we saw also the Ministry of Agriculture even mulling over the lifting of a ban on some of the abattoirs that were closed because of the killing of the donkeys for export and medicinal purposes. We have some of the, I think, good nutritive products that come from the donkey skin. They call it the ijiao. Ijiao is a very interesting herbal tea that the Chinese drink. And so our donkeys have been affected, especially here in the East African. People will wonder, in this day and age, why would we be talking about donkeys? But in reality, there are people who we know, even here in Nairobi, where they're using donkey to, as a source of living. I think maybe you should, I don't know, Congo Morgan, you can tell me from what really happens in Nyamira.
The level of poverty is still very high. That's the reality, that the level of poverty in this country is still very high. There are many urban areas in my country where you still find donkeys being very useful, including in helping many people are in business. People are transporting maize. People are selling charcoal. What you have mentioned, drawing water from river. Those who are more innovative are even converting them to meat, which I think may not be very healthy. But I'm happy to hear that the camel industry in northern Kenya is flourishing. We were at the devolution conference in Eldoret, and everybody who rose to speak said, you are in the county of champions. So I hope when we next go to one of the counties in northern Kenya, we'll be told, welcome to the county of camels. It's a good thing, and next time I hope I will benefit from the generosity of Mheshimiwa. He'll come with some liters of camel milk so that he can market. And on the other hand also, he should also appreciate to receive tea. Nyamira is one of the counties in this country where tea is a big industry. We have a number of factories. The nearest to my home is Nyasiongo tea factory or Kebirigo tea factory. So when you bring camel milk, I also bring you tea.
They are available in most supermarkets.
Yeah. They're actually there.
Yes. And also enjoy bananas also from Nyamira. So that's what devolution was really meant to achieve. That each county should have something that you can pride yourself with, something that is making you to have a reputation as a county famed for that particular thing in the contribution of growing our economy. And that's how it should be developed. But I mean, on the other hand, I hope, as leaders, we can dream to make the lives of our people better. All these years after our independence, 60 years, we are still talking of Kenyans using donkeys as a mode of transport. It's really unfortunate. I mean, if our fathers were to rise up and find that we are still using donkeys as a mode of transport, it's quite shameful. It's quite shameful. I mean, it tells you that still there are many Kenyans in this country who are living below the poverty line. We need to see a government and we as leaders doing something to transform the lives of the people we are leading. If you go to the executive, I think it's been transformed for the better. There are many serving cabinet secretaries who cannot tell you the state of many roads in this country because they don't travel by road anymore. The chosen mode of transport is through choppers, you know. So life changes at the top, but at the bottom, people are still suffering. So I hope, you know, we can change this script so that we see transformation right from the bottom to the top. Yeah.
All right, let's hear from Dan Manzo. I know one of the biggest, of course, benefits from Makueni as well is the baobab tree.
Yes.
Yes, and we've seen also in Kilifi the baobab tree, they're being exported illegally.
Yes.
Is it a threat? I don't know how it fares also in Makueni.
Well, you know, first on the story of the donkey, Makueni has quite a number of donkeys. It's a means of transport in terms of fetching water and other goods. And the most unfortunate thing is, you know, donkeys and other animals have also been mistreated. Some people really, you know, injure them when trying to whip them to do something, you know. Cruelty to animals has really been an issue. But right now, worse is the abattoirs and the people, you know, selling meat for a donkey, which is particularly a major use of transport, especially now that fuel has gone up. A lot of people are opting to the cheaper means of transport, which are, which are not very efficient. They are slower. You know, you expect a modern world to be moving much faster than it is. But, well, in some thinking, donkey meat is actually haram. So the donkey should be left to do its work and not have the meat. In Makueni, mainly now we have oranges, quite a lot of oranges. Farmers have done very well in oranges. And again, also, we have mango season is about to kick in. You know, the mangoes which fruit much earlier. You know, some are able to fruit in different months, depending on the type of mango. So some fruit earlier, others in the middle of the year, and others later in the year. So in some quarters you find a supply of mangoes throughout the year. And right now the pits is ringing, and farmers are really you know, making a profit out of that and making themselves comfortable. So we look forward into successful devolution. The governor from Makueni is doing his level best to, you know, to make sure that devolution works and the benefits can be, you know, can reach the lowest level. The biggest challenge has been the finances to the counties. They still, you know, a lot of stuff has not been devolved from the national government. We are yet to see the agriculture money. We are yet to see health money, water, and all those are devolved functions, you know. So we look forward to the government being more efficient and honoring devolution by making sure there is sufficient monies and the devolved functions are fully devolved, but some people are holding them at the national level.
Fantastic.
Yes.
All right, let's also hear from
and then you know, the baobab tree is a very rich source of calcium, and many other products have now been found, you know, to be associated with that, and even some medicinal. So currently there are a lot of researchers working on that, and I think Owen Bayer has a better story coming from the coast.
You should tell us in Kilifi, what is happening with the baobab trees as well. Why the flash of interest?
Thank you.
Good morning, good to see you.
Good morning. Nice to be here again, Deval and the team. I'll start with the baobab tree. The baobab tree, the ones that are being exported actually come from a constituency, a place called Tezo. And there has been a lot of hue and cry about why we are allowing, but people don't want to look at the facts. And the facts are that there are only 8 baobab trees, only 8 baobab trees that are being exported to the United States. And the owners of these trees, the farmers, have benefited because they have sold these trees. They are poor people, and these poor people have for many years not earned anything from their land, anything significant. But when somebody comes and says, I'll buy this baobab tree at 500,000, and it is his property, he has a right to sell. again, another fact is there are over 2 million baobab trees in this country. 2 million. Especially in Ukambani. In Ukambani, immediately as you drive from Mombasa, you get to Kitwandei, you start seeing the baobab trees, you know. There are actually very, very many in Ukambani, the baobab trees. And they grow widely. Again, if you come to the coast, you will have so many baobab trees there. And nobody for many years has done anything about the baobab trees. Farmers have never been given any support for these baobab trees. Today, if I eat mabuyu and throw away the seeds, they will grow immediately. And therefore, the baobab tree, one, is not an endangered species. Two, the baobab tree, I have been reading some people saying it's not an indigenous tree to Kenya. It is not indigenous. It came from the Portuguese. And that is why it started at the coast during the trade. It started at the coast, and then now it is spreading all over the country. So for me, yes, it's a rich source of calcium, but it does not mean people should be stopped from selling the baobab tree if they can make money out of it. The poor Jikenda people earning a living out of a baobab tree, and if he gets 300,000 and is able to or 500,000 able to transform his family, I do not think. I think the country is being unfair to the local Mijikenda people just because they sold 8 baobab trees. Of course, if there was mass export of it, I would even say no. But only 8. Yes, and there are many people. Out of those 8, there are many jobs that have been created. You know, by there are those people who cut, there are people who ferry them. The owners of those ferries that are carrying those baobab trees. So that is one. 2, Debal, I would like to speak about the devolution conference that.
We'll come to that. But I'm interested to know if there's a flash of interest worldwide for the baobab tree.
Yes.
And one tree is fetching 500,000, also 500,000.
Yes.
Why can't we do a case study on what is happening with baobab tree worldwide? Why there's an interest? And we have so much resource here in the country. We export the raw material, then we'll be buying back these things as a value added.
You see, I met the guys who are buying this baobab tree because they are buying them from my constituents, and I asked them, why are you buying this baobab tree? They said, we are establishing a park in one of the cities in the United States, I think in Atlanta, Georgia. They're establishing a park, and one of the things that they want is to have huge trees within the park, and that is the only reason why they are buying these trees, not for anything else. I had a discussion with the minister. I said, no, they're exporting our genetic materials, and under the law you cannot, the lawyers are here, genetic material cannot just be taken away from a country. There has to be a procedure. So the interest of the baobab tree by the Americans is basically for the establishment of a park in the United States, especially Atlanta, Georgia. And that is where the trees are going for that purpose. And I think out of the 2 million that we have, taking 8 away and helping another country establish a park, I do not think that's too much. So, but I would like to ask the people in agriculture, the people in forestry, to do the research. The baobab trees that are there, by the way, the coast, the productivity is very low. Why don't they generate a new species that can produce more? Why don't they do more research that they can produce more mabuyu, bigger mabuyu, so that that they can be used? Yes, it's a source of calcium, but it does not mean we can stop somebody benefiting from a product from his farm. That is my view.
If they're putting up a park in the United States, we know also, can that be a threat to our tourism? Canaan, because we know it's not really a laughing matter, because we know also in Dubai there's the artificial game parks, and they're harvesting a lot of soil from Africa. They're taking it to Dubai. They are taking some of these baobab trees that you're talking about, some of the vegetation as well. In a sense, we'll have also a clear competitor when it comes to our tourism. I don't know what you think about it, Okongo Mogeni.
Yeah, Dubai is amazing. What Dubai has been able to do for the last few years is unbelievable. And that tells you what how leadership can transform a country. It's a shame that Dubai is more greener than Nairobi. a country that receives no rainfall at all. You will find all manner of species of flowers and trees in Dubai. So you're right when you actually tell us that in terms of tourism, Dubai poses a big threat to Kenya. You know, security in Dubai cannot be matched with the security in Kenya. You can do business in Dubai, work comfortably at 11 p.m. without looking back to see who is following you. Look at the number of hotels that have set up a business in Dubai. Look at the nationalities that have moved into Dubai from many countries to work in Dubai. And I hope we are, I mean those of you who are in government, I hope the government is keeping a keen eye, because that is the source of employment. I've said in this show many times, that government can never be a source of employment. Only a small percentage of Kenyans can get employed by government. But if you create a conducive environment, you'll be able to attract private investors who will set up industries. It could be cottage industries. The Dubai, the taxis in Dubai employ more than 10,000 drivers. You can imagine. Imagine the youth, the number of youths that are in our counties that are looking for jobs. If you created that kind of environment, it would be really a game changer. But then again, this issue of baobab trees, you know, the locals must also enjoy these resources. You know, we want to protect our tourism, but it's a very delicate balance.
But the locals now, they want to enjoy it, and they've been having it for the longest time. They've not been tapping it with, or maybe they've not realized
it's a delicate
exceedingly
balance of preserving nature, but also ensuring that if it can turn into an economic activity that can transform. Like, I'm actually pleasantly surprised that there are families that are making 500,000 from the sale of those trees. That changes
Indeed.
a home. If you are making 500,000, very, very few homesteads in this country see that kind of money. So we must do a delicate balance, preserve nature, have that tourism attraction, but also allow some benefits to trickle down to the people who have taken care of these trees all this time.
Indeed.
Yeah. Yeah, you know. Yeah, so I think our tourism has been dipping. We are not doing very well. I was shocked. I took a friend to Nyeri last weekend, and we were walking around looking for a restaurant to have tea. I was shocked that Outspan Hotel has since closed doors in Nyeri. Green Hills Hotel has since closed doors in
Outspan, it was a stopover for many people transiting
you can imagine.
from Nairobi to Western.
Yeah, and it's now that Treetops is trying to renovate, to open. You know, look at the number of Kenyans who are losing jobs when we close those industries. Remember the iconic multipartism hero, Ken Matiba. The Alliance Group of Hotels in Mombasa closed shop, and they have never been renovated, never been opened. So as a country, we need to really be worried. You remember that during COVID, the American government was deliberately giving money to establishment companies to cushion them so that they don't close. Because when an establishment that has employed over 100 people closes, look at how many families will miss food on the table. So we must have a deliberate effort. You know, this should be a matter of concern to our government. If you look at the number of establishments that are closing, that should worry you, because it means a number of Kenyans have lost their jobs. And if you are an economist, that will also mean that you're also losing taxes, because from those employees you're also able to get tax as a government. So that should be a matter of concern. But Dubai is just out of this world.
Indeed.
I don't think we can even start to compare Kenya with Dubai.
Kenan, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I think one thing that is emerging, Kenya is a land of wonders. We have the most diversified ecosystem. Literally, we have everything that a country requires. We have a deserts, we have semi-deserts, we have the best coastal line, we have the most mountainous region, we have the most plainland region, we have the River Valley. Meaning, God has endowed us with everything. What is missing? And I don't think, first of all, the issue of job creation is the preserve of the government. It's for us, the leadership, to be responsible, responsive, and be ready to support the resilience of the Kenyan people. The Kenyan people have been resilient actually since we got our independence. They are in very difficult political environment. And that's why right now when we talk of Dubai, Dubai is a product of resilience, a product of hard work, a product of leadership who have really expanded the horizon of thinking. But the paradox is this. Just 1 month ago, we looked at what was happening in the streets. The first thing that will come to your mind is Kenya was at a state of war. Who will come and invest? Where will you create jobs? So it's like every cycle, every end of election, we destroy what we have created. And then we have to begin afresh. That is why many hotels, you go to the CBD, Hilton is closed. You go to the CBD, Intercontinental is closed. You go to the CBD, Crown Plaza is closed. We only have how many now? In the CBD. Stanley's Rover and which other? Very few other hotels. This is because of our systemic, propaganda-oriented philosophies that have demeaned the image of Kenya as a country. And honestly, unless we are pragmatic enough, unless we are honest with ourselves, this country is for all of us. It's not the work of the government alone, actually, to create a conducive environment for job creation. It's our responsibility. Okay? Collective responsibility as the leadership. Collective responsibility as citizens. And I think this is one thing that misses. So once we apportion that thing to the government, how will they do it? We need to support. That's why when it comes to national disasters, when it comes to certain things in other civilized, developed countries, people come around and say, look, this transcends my personal ego. This transcends my individual interest. And therefore, we must support what is good for the country. That culture is what is missing in Kenya. And until we incorporate that, the issue of underemployment, the issue of unemployment, the issue of poverty will always be rampant. And that's why today, in 1972, I'm told Dubai was just like Wajir, the way Wajir is right now. In 1972, somebody brought me actually the map. Dubai in 1972 and Wajir. And we have more facilities, more natural resources than Dubai. So we can turn Wajir into Dubai. Forget about Nairobi. Nairobi has everything. Nairobi is a pasture of everything. And I think this is why we need to pause and say, look, are we doing well? This is why in our previous shows, I say, it's projected that in the next 2 years, the GDP of Ethiopia will be 5 times that of Kenya. Tanzania is catching up. So these are the challenges that really, as a people, as leadership, we must confront and say, how do we get out of that cycle?
Indeed, indeed. All right, let's just hack back into history a bit with our museum. We see what also happened today. It is in the 23rd of August when we had also Kijana Wamalwa passing on. Let's just remember him from one of our archives in the museum.
For a long time now, and I think that we have come close enough for me to be able to say that in the next general elections, the Luhya vote will go in one basket. And I'm quite sure that neither myself nor the Honorable Minister will tell you what that basket will be today.
We have decided to accept the results of the just concluded elections and to join hands with other Kenyans in addressing the urgent problems facing our nation at the moment. Ford Kenya, in accepting these results, would want to ensure that there is peace and stability in our nation, because any talk of rejecting results and instituting mass action can only help to destabilize our nation further. We wish to get on with the job of discussing and enacting comprehensive constitutional and legal reforms to complete the IPPG process.
The only way to free our country from tremendous poverty and total collapse of all institutions, economic, civil, judicial, and in every other way, is for us to come together as wise people, work together, fight together to remove this government from power as soon as possible. We can learn the humility to realize that any leader to be a leader must be supported by others, even greater people than himself. Any leader must stand on the shoulders of other leaders and even greater leaders than himself. Otherwise, there will be no way anybody can be a leader.
All right, let's hear from Dan Mazo. How do you remember Kijana Wamalwa?
Kijana Wamalwa was...
Today will be his anniversary.
He had this passion of uniting people. First, uniting the Luhya nation, then uniting the country. And he was a lawyer. He understood legal issues very well. And he gave hope to the nation. Like I remember in 2003, there were quite a number of election petitions. And one of it was for, Busia. and he will want the candidates, to withdraw the cases. I remember the case of Okemo, and I represented Patrick Olasa Wabidonge. So Honorable Wamalwa called us, and because I was a lawyer for Wabidonge, he told me the need of getting the people united, and Wabidonge was asked to withdraw his suit. Of course, he promised us that when he's back to the country, we'll be able to talk further. So I listened to him and withdraw the case, only not to meet him again. But, he had that, he wanted things sorted out. He wanted people to live in peace. He didn't want the politics to be hard-hitting, fighting there in court, yet you come from one constituency. So he encouraged the young man, Patrick Olasa Wabidonge, to try it again in the future and let the already elected MP, carry on. And he did that, in quite a number of regions. And I thought it was very good in terms of, encouraging peace and love in a country and settling out things so that people can move on. Yes.
All right. How do you remember Kijana Wamalwa? When by?
Kijana Wamalwa was is a great nationalist, I think I would say, because it took him a long time before he came to be vice president. And before he became vice president, you could see his track record and his growth as a politician who was more of a Kenyan than a Luhya. I had my brother say that he was uniting the Luhya nation. But I think Kijana Wamalwa cut across as a Kenyan more than a Luhya. And I think Kibaki's choice of him as vice president was informed by the fact that Kijana Wamalwa was a nationalist. And one of the things that I remember him for is his English. I think he's one of the Kenyans that spoke the Queen's English. I don't know how him and Jonjo rival each other, but I think he was a notch higher. And I remember his speech. The top of the walk. Kenyans now walk with a new gaiety. That when Kibaki came into power and was giving this speech, I think it was like a 5-minute speech, a Jamhuri, but you could feel the palpitation of a new nation being rebuilt by leaders who are really committed to building a great nation.
Thank you.
So Kijana Wamalwa will go into history as one of those great Kenyans that worked very hard to unify the country and put the country together.
Fantastic. Elders, how do you remember Kijana Wamalwa?
Yes, we were with him in the 8th Parliament. And, he epitomized so many things. Simplicity, eloquence, what do I call it? Being tagged the gentleman of Kenyan rough politics. And that might also actually costed him dearly. So he's one person, actually, if we have had many Wamalwas. These atrocities, this crisis, he was at peace with himself. He was at peace with his environment. He loved everybody. You will come and persuade you. You will go to him when you are a bit annoyed or agitated, and the first 1 or 2 statements that comes out from his mouth you'll be subdued. That is the gentleman actually Kenya's politics actually required. So the Wamalwa, and we wish he lived long, Wamalwa actually will have really transformed this country and will have changed the mindset of many people. In particular, transforming our politics from the harsh politics that we have into some sort of civilized
sobriety,
based politics. That is the Wamalwa that I have. And another thing, it was extremely generous. It was extremely generous. At that time, you know, parliamentarians actually were not. Life was very difficult actually for ordinary members. I remember I was among the youngest members of parliament, and life was extremely difficult. We didn't have offices. If I tell you my first pay slip, you'll be surprised. Net was about 3,000, nothing else. No offices, no bodyguard, no constituency of. Literally, the member of parliament actually was a pauper. So Wamalwa was among the few privileged. So once in a while, when we ran into crisis, and he was available, he will oscillate between parliament and 680 and a number of other places. So some of the joints that we will run to and say, look, this weekend things are very difficult actually was Wamalwa. So that is the Wamalwa that we need.
Thank you.
To live long.
Thank you. Okay, lastly, before we take a short break,
He epitomized a team of politicians who are very calm and who I think I would say did decent politics. Because even when they won in 2002 with Kibaki, there was no campaign mode. You know, nowadays you finish an election and you see the country is in a campaign mode. But these are people who are able to settle down and try and move the country forward, make some contribution in moving the country forward. As Owen Bayer said, a great English speaker. You know, I remember when he seconded Saitoti. I was a very young professional in 1997. And you know what you are doing in Parliament during the IPPG. And you know, the mood was very toxic in Parliament. After Saitoti spoke, you know, when Wamalwa stood to second the motion, the way he just spoke to Parliament, you could see the change, the calming, the environment in Parliament. That was Wamalwa for you. And you know, that's what politics is all about. When we're disagreeing, you need somebody who comes in and calms the waters, and you all of a sudden realize that really it is our country and the interests of the country is bigger than any of us. That was Wamalwa for you.
Thank you.
I think we miss him. It's been 20 years. May God rest his soul in eternal peace.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Done, Mams.
Well,
You've commented.
yes, I made a comment.
All right, fantastic. If you had, I thought I'd not give you a chance. So allow me to take a short break. Actually, it's 7 o'clock on the nose. But of course, we remember Kijana Wamalwa, the Vice President of Kenya that passed on. And today, it marks, of course, his anniversary. We take a short break. When we circle back, we continue with the discussion here. The soapbox will be up next, and then we shall buckle down to discuss what are the latest developments as far as also following up with the devolution conference that just concluded, some of the resolutions that were made. We're yet to receive the report, but what are some of the highlights that actually stood out from that particular conference? And looking forward as well, there are senators here and members of parliament. Now we want to debate also intensely on the issue of the Chepkonga bill, the new bill that is on the floor of the House, that is on the National Assembly. That 6 to 10, that frosty relationship that they've had, the infights as well. Who's upper, who's lower? And of course, we had also a very interesting